Today, I have with me Annika Jackson. Annika Jackson is a branding and marketing powerhouse who has built a thriving career at the intersection of business, philanthropy, and digital media. As the founder of Your Brand Amplified, a professor at University of South California, and a seasoned entrepreneur, Anika helps businesses, nonprofits, and individuals craft compelling brand stories that leave a lasting impact. She's also a podcasting veteran, ranking in top 1.5% globally with Your Brand Amplified. Today, we're diving deep into what it really takes to build a personal brand that stands out in a noisy digital world. Wow! Today, I want us to talk about also one of your strongest area of expertise, which is building a powerful personal brand. I think beyond logos and into legacy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and usually before I go into talking about the technical and the context-wise of the episode, I usually like to ask my guests a couple of questions to help my listeners know the person they're listening to.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to know, what sparked your passion for branding and marketing and philanthropy? Yeah.
Oh gosh, that is such a big question. What sparked was an innate understanding of who I was that other people weren't seeing. So I grew up multicultural in Kansas, United States, middle of the country, without people who looked like me. My mom was an immigrant. She didn't speak English growing up, and she was still learning English.
Yeah.
So she didn't teach us hi growing up. So I was known as a more shy, reserved kid, but I knew I had a lot of ideas. I knew that I had an opinion. I just needed people to see me. And so I had to embark on a journey of marketing and branding myself before I even knew what those words were, to put myself out there so that other people could see me how I saw myself. And so that's been the cornerstone of figuring out how to share myself with people, how to feel authentically myself, because it's not always easy, and then how to help other people extrapolate their brand essence and bring it forth, because a lot of people are afraid to do that. So that's really the start. I was probably in elementary school, and since then, that's been what I love doing, is helping empower people to get their brand out there, to let other people see the light that we all have as individuals. And that's, of course, taking its way into the marketing, into philanthropy, into everything else.
The next question I'm going to ask is a bit sensitive, and it's, how has being a single mom influenced your entrepreneurial journey?
How has being a single mom influenced
your entrepreneurial journey?
Yes. Wow. Being a single mom has deeply influenced my journey as an entrepreneur. One thing that happened is I'd always been an entrepreneur, starting little businesses or projects. Then I had my daughter. I stayed at home. And then when I got divorced, I had to go back to work. And I had to figure out what could I do for work that met my skill set, but also would give me that time to be there for her.
Yeah.
Because she is the most important and the most important thing, I want to pour as much into supporting her journey into adulthood. And it was very hard to find a job that had that flexibility, that would let me off early to go pick up my daughter or make it to all of the school activities and make sure. I want to be the mom who makes breakfast in the morning, drops my daughter off at school, picks her up, knows about her day, gets to take her to activities while I'm still able to do work, perhaps while I'm driving around, have a call, take a Zoom meeting from her tennis practice or whatever. But that really influenced who I am as a person, as an entrepreneur. And it also, I think, is really good for her to see positives and negatives of things that happen to you in life. And how can you turn something into a positive? Being an entrepreneur is a struggle sometimes. It's not always rainbows and sunshine and love and money, right? So that's one of the biggest ways that it's influenced me.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think at this point in time, let's dive into the subject of the matter. Before we even talk about personal branding, and even I start asking you questions. What would you say? You see, you work on one of your things you do. It's, you have a company called Your Brand Amplified. Yeah, Your Brand Amplified. And basically, what you do, if I understand correctly, is personal branding and etc.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with my business, I originally had a public relations firm, and the tagline was "Your Brand Amplified." So
Wow.
we were going to help people get articles, interviews, all of that. It quickly evolved into a situation where people didn't just need PR, but some of them needed branding work before we could even put them out to the news, right? Take them out to journalists, take them out for interviews. They really need to understand and distill who they were as a brand. Some people needed websites. Different people had different needs. And so I really, at that point, had to realize that we weren't a PR firm. And that firm, eventually, I merged it with somebody else. And then I came back as Your Brand Amplified. And I really help consult people, whether it's on branding, marketing, strategy, tactics, podcasting, any area that will help amplify who they are, the message they have for the world, and what they need people to understand to reach the ideal customer at the ideal time, right? Reach that person who they can really make an impact on.
Yeah, earlier when I asked you about what sparked your interest in branding, marketing, and philanthropy, one of the key things you mentioned was the fact that you needed to make the world see you as you saw yourself. But then sometimes you need to see yourself. You need to know how you see yourself before you start making the world see you as you see yourself.
Oh my gosh, so true.
Yeah.
So true. And it does evolve over time. But that's why branding is the basis of everything. Every decision you make is more empowered if you know who you are. And so it's very similar for personal brands versus professional brands. Nowadays, people want to work with people that they trust, that they engage with, that they see as somebody that they want to invest in, that they're happy to buy this person's products because of your values,
Yeah.
right? And so with branding, I always start out with, what is your purpose, right? What would the world look like if you reach your life goal? We all have a purpose here on earth. So thinking about your purpose, thinking about then, okay, how do I take that purpose and turn it into a mission? So what is my mission in living in that purpose? Because it can mean a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Amplifying people's brand, helping them could come in. I could be a therapist, right? I could do marketing. I could do advertising. There's so many different areas that you could play in. And then you think about your vision. What is the world going to look like when you fulfill your purpose?
Hmm.
And then you think about your thinking and the things that are really important, the values that are really important to you. And so when you think about things from that perspective, it makes it really easy to understand what the right decisions are and what you should not do to reach the people that you want to reach, to show yourself as you want to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, when our values is clearly outlined for us, it makes decision making really, really easy.
Mm-hmm.
You,
Yeah, absolutely.
one of the things I like for you to cover up before we go into the tactics and all that is you work with a lot of clients, right? What are some of the big misconceptions you've noticed that a lot of persons have about personal branding?
Gosh, the misconception, of course, I think you brought this up to me at the beginning, is that your logo is all you need, that your logo will encompass everything, right? So a lot of times, and that was where I really started diving deeper into branding with my clients, they would say, we have a logo, we have a website, we have social media. All right, but what message are you sharing? Is it the message you want to? Does your logo really represent who you are? You don't start with the logo, right? It's a piece of your mark. It's a mark that shows who you are. It's a symbol.
Yeah.
Just the way that, and there can be other symbols. You can have audio. When you come onto a podcast, you hear somebody's introduction music.
Yeah.
That is a little bit of their branding,
Yeah.
right? So there are all these things that people forget about.
Yeah. I think a perfect example of the audio logo is Netflix.
Oh, yes,
yeah, that sound.
exactly. Yeah, or the opening a Coca-Cola can,
Yeah.
or email. Those are all forms of sonic branding.
Yeah.
And I would argue that sonic branding can be just as important as what your logo, what colors you use, what image you use for your logo. And so that was really the biggest thing. The other thing is sometimes people, especially entrepreneurs, we switch what we are doing sometimes in our journey. We find we start down one path and then we say, oh, but this other thing is really what I want to be doing, what I'm really passionate about. And it can take time to move the needle on how people perceive you and your brand. And I've had people come say, hey, I'm really known for HR. I'm starting this kind of business. I want to be known for mental health and HR. Great, you have a personal story, but people are asking you to speak on stages about HR work and other things. Start there. start teasing out your story and what you're doing. And that's the way to build the bridge to what you're doing now. It's not just going to be an automatic jump because people know you have one level of expertise. They don't realize that you have many other levels in this field of expertise. So let's start in one place and let's build the bridge. Let's get you over to the other place. And then you'll be able to do exactly what you want. And people sometimes get restless. They're in a hurry. They don't want to take the time to do this work. But if you take the time to foundationally understand who you are, what your company is, what your values, processes, your positioning, all of that is first, even if it takes a little more time, you are going to be so much stronger as an organization, as an individual, because you took the time.
Yeah. I mean, if you know, when most persons hear all these things you prescribe me, one of the things they say, "Well, that's too much work. I don't have to do it." The funny thing is that it's either you do it or you do it. At the end of the day, what will happen is that your brand will give a message. You just have to decide if you want to be intentional about the message or not.
Yes, exactly. That's such a great point, Wisdom. Is it a message that other people are deciding on your behalf, or is it the message that you are telling people? Is this the story that you own?
Yeah, yeah. I like the fact that you say one of the thing you talked about is the logo is just a symbol. I mean, let's say for example the Netflix sound logo. If Netflix wasn't like that doesn't have if there was no Netflix behind that sound logo, it would just be one of the sounds. It would just be a sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Netflix is what gives meaning to the sound. I say, oh, that's true. Someone is watching Netflix.
Yes, exactly. We identify, and that's something that we love doing as humans. We love identifying and categorizing. And that makes it easier to understand whether it's other people, businesses, organizations, what somebody's interested in, all of that. And so I love the way that you're sharing that because that's 100%.
Yeah, yeah. I think recently I've had a couple of podcast guests on my podcast, and one of the key things we've been having like spontaneously it comes up in conversation is people as much as we talk about what to do, there are also things that you should not do, right? And before we'll go into the things that you should do, the strategies, the frameworks, and how to like find your personal brand, know what's your core values and beliefs and every other thing. What are some of the surefire way? Okay, let me go slow. What are some of the short things you know that people should never do when they're trying to build a personal brand?
Don't spend all don't waste your budget. First of all, if you have a budget on a lot of fancy courses or fancy agencies, don't spend all of your money on things that are not important yet. Those things come out. And I think that's what a lot of people do. If I just throw money into Google ads or meta advertising to talk about my product, brand, service, then I'll be successful. But there's first of all, so many details in setting up your ad campaigns, which is a whole other topic. But also don't waste money. I mean, even with podcasting, people will spend tens, if they have it, right? Tens of thousands of dollars creating the perfect studio, the perfect equipment, the perfect lighting, multiple camera angles, multiple screens, sound, making sure the room is insulated. But they haven't actually started their journey. So the important thing is to start, right?
Yeah.
Start small. Start with the resources you have on hand. Start with focus group people that you know that would be your ideal customer or consumer. Start there and then build. Don't spend all money on the trappings because then you're going to get stuck in that cycle that people get stuck in, right? Of, I just bought this expensive course or I paid for this really great thing, but I don't even know how to use it. And I don't have time to use it because I'm trying to start a business.
Yeah. One of the important things about personal brand is, okay. Before I even ask this question, can you like define personal brand for me? Like, let's say I'm 5 in layman terms.
Oh yeah. To me, your personal brand is what everybody sees when they see you, when they hear your name, when they look at you. It is the essence of you, right? It's everything that they see that you represent when they hear you speak, when they read something you write. That's the most basic way I can explain it, I think. I hope that meets your qualification.
Yeah, the adults may understand, but I don't think the 5-year-old me understands what you just said. Yeah.
But yeah, it's to me, it's the same. The personal brand is also who we feel like we are, but if we're not showing that, then is it truly our personal brand? We could get really philosophical here.
Yeah.
I actually think 5-year-olds do a better job at this than we do, don't you? They may go to school, they may go to daycare, come home, they have a new friend, they tell you something about the friend,
Yeah.
that they like the same color, they have the same haircut. That's what they see.
Yeah.
And that, to them, that is the qualification for, this is a good person who I want to be friends with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
I feel like kids, they have a way of profiling all the adults around. Like if you have the opportunity to befriend them, to just like sit in their midst and have them talk to you, they can easily tell you everything about everybody in the neighborhood and say, "Oh, that uncle, that auntie, no, that man, she's very selfish."
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Yeah, exactly. They're really great at observing.
And like basically, like if you go into any new neighborhood that you want to know everything about everybody in the neighborhood, just go to the kids, maybe host them, be their friend, just buy them something and have them talking, and they would basically tell you everything about anybody you want to know.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And the thing is that they don't have the filters
Yeah, there's no
that we
filter,
have.
and they see everything. Like even like when you're discussing your neighbor, you're like, "Oh, this neighbor, I don't really think she they hear everything." The point is that for most times they are invisible.
Yeah. But that's, we could have the perception, and this can happen in any branding situation, right? Oh, that the adult says, "I really like that neighbor, so and so," and the kid says, "That neighbor is not nice to her cat. She leaves her cat outside all
Yeah,
day whining," right? They give us a very different perspective, and that's, what do you want your brand to be? Not just everybody to see that surface level good stuff.
yeah,
Oh, they think because you're so fine, but what's behind the curtain.
yeah, yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah. The question I want to ask is, with personal brand, one of the most important things about personal branding is storytelling, right?
Yeah.
For most
Yeah.
persons, one of the I know a lot of persons ask this question, and sometimes like it sounds unbelievable, but most persons say, "I don't have an interesting story to tell."
Everybody has a story to tell.
Okay. Okay.
Everybody has a story to tell. Yeah. I was working with an agency, and the founder had been in business for over 20 years. She worked specifically with adult education, workforce development agencies. And I said, you don't share your story with people, but you are who your client's trying to reach, you as a child. And she kind of looked at me, and I said, your story. She grew up in South United States, very poor, alcoholic parents, didn't always have food on the table, worked on a farm in the summers to make money and to have something to do and have food. Her sister helped her get a scholarship because her sister was a little older, caretaker, helped her get a scholarship to a better school.
Yeah.
And that was her way out of poverty. But she didn't even look at herself, because she's just thinking about who she is now. She's the reason she does that work,
Yeah.
because she's that little girl who needed that help from others and needed to know that she could succeed, that she could go back to school as an adult, or that she could get a great job, even if she didn't come from, a certain circumstance. And I think we all forget that so much. And we only see the positive. We see the bright, shiny thing. We see the awards, the accolades, but for instance, when I tell my story, 6 years ago, I was just about to move back to Los Angeles. When I moved back, I had no money to my name. I had to find work again. I came under a very different situation than I thought I was. I was on food stamps. I was trying to take care of whatever work my friends would give me, applying for so many different jobs. And now I am a professor at a university.
Wow.
I have 2 podcasts. I'm a consultant. I get to speak at conferences. I get to meet really amazing people. And I have this completely different journey in life that I could not have even imagined 6 years ago, when I was essentially restarting again. And that is a really important part of my story to me, because I had to be really humble, right? I had to look at things in a completely different way. And that made me see that I want to be an inspiration for other people, to show them you can also, it's okay to go through these things. It's okay to admit that you needed help in a time of need. It's okay to not be perfect, to not have everything figured out all the time. It's okay to muddle through this life. But that's part of your journey. And when you come out the other side, you will have a story to tell to inspire somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I have like, from this story just so that I have like 3 questions to ask you. And I'm hoping I don't forget the 3 questions before I finish asking either one of them. The first question I want to ask is, you made mention of the fact that when you come out at the other side, you would have a story to tell, right? What about those of us that are
Yeah.
inside it? We are still inside the tunnel.
Well,
How do we tell our story?
well, we were always inside of it. When I was inside at that time, I would tell pieces of it because I was on people's podcasts and they were asking about owning my business and all of this and that. And I would say, yeah, I'm still at the beginning of this journey and the story's ever evolving, right? But the important things were I had to look at myself as I'm not always the one who has to give to people. It's also okay to receive and to ask for help and admit that you need help. It is also okay to do the work and then to, give it up to divine being, to say, I've done what I can do. I've applied for every job. I've made every phone call. I've done as many interviews. I need guidance. I need help. I leave it in your hands. And that things change. Things can change rapidly when you do that. And everybody's story is a little different, right? But that's what happened for me. And then I got a job and then I started getting a lot of business. And then I ended up starting my PR firm because I was getting so many inbound requests from people who knew people.
Yeah.
I wasn't advertising or, and then I ended up hiring a team and then I built I built my team up, and that all came out of just perseverance, belief in myself, not being afraid to ask for help and to be vulnerable in those moments.
Yeah.
And that's something I never forget. And my journey's not even halfway done, right? We still have everything is another piece. Come on, 6 months, I'll probably have something else to share.
Yeah. You said when I asked you about the people not having interesting story, you just started sharing exciting story of or some of your clients and some of the friends you've worked with. For me, I know you do this. Like this is one part of the this is part of the process you do with your clients. What do you have a framework you use to like quickly get their story and kind of like say, okay, yeah, here's your story.
Well, that's a good question. I would say one of the things I like to do is get information. So I like Google Forms a lot. So I start with a lot of Google Forms to get the basic information and data, right? And then I want to have a conversation and hear it from somebody's own words, because sometimes what they write or what they have on their website isn't how they say it. And are they leaving out something that really needs to be told because they want to make themselves look better, or that like they have it more together than the rest of us?
Yeah.
And so one way that I really like to distill it is just having these conversations. Typically, whether I'm working with my students or with somebody, it's pretty easy to start coming up with themes and ideas. And then I like to have somebody go on podcasts or go on to do some smaller interviews, maybe some written interviews, because you get so much information and then you can see, okay, here's how they're sharing their story. Here's how we should tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
Here's what we need to add in or take away to really, because maybe the story they're sharing isn't the story that will get them to meet their goals.
Yeah, I like that. When it comes to filling Google Forms, which is great, but oftentimes there's this filter where people feel they have to articulate it, and then they cut out a lot of things that you would want to see when they're filling the form compared to a straight up conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you earlier on you mentioned vulnerability, like that itself is a touchy subject. How do you approach it? Like when is I feel like there's a thin line where beyond it becomes something else.
It could be, certainly. There are times when I'll just share a little bit part of my story very matter of factly. And there are times when I haven't meant to share it and I end up sharing it and being vulnerable because the moment is right. It just comes out of my mouth. And I just did this recently at a women's event where I was going to be on a panel. I ended up speaking for a little bit longer as a single speaker, and I didn't have anything prepared. And I just got up and started speaking. And it was about brand, and it was about yourself, right? Self-mastery, self-love, how you have to start there as well. And I shared my story and I was in tears because at that moment I felt very vulnerable, but I felt like it was also a safe space. So I think, but sometimes, right, being vulnerable can be seen as being a victim or oversharing or any number of things. But I think as long as you're genuine and authentic with who you are, and you're not using it as a crutch, right? Then you can really still share your message, still be seen how you want to be seen, and be able to use it as a teachable moment for other people and for yourself.
Yeah. I think recently I had a guest, Alan, and he did define personal branding as sharing your uniqueness in generosity of of others, right? And I feel like when it comes to vulnerability, it's same thing. It's about, okay, how can I share this in a way that, generously, like out of the kindness of my heart, I can help someone out there, not just because people should just know that I'm doing this or I'm doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the uniqueness, that's a great word for the definition. But
Yeah.
it's absolutely like pulling all these things out of ourselves
Yeah,
and out of others.
I mean, you have a lot of uniqueness. I have a lot of uniqueness. Like, there are certain things that of course, you can make any content on anything. I can make content on anything, but there are certain content that I will make stuff on, and people will resonate better with me compared to if you make that content. And there are certain things you would talk about that people will resonate more compared if I make that made content on it. Yeah, because people would just see your uniqueness and connect with you more than if it was me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, we've talked about personal branding and storytelling, and I did ask you, what about those of us that are still in tunnel? And you said that most of us, like almost everybody, is still in the tunnel. Yeah. The question I
Yeah,
want to ask is, a lot of persons, personal brand is. I feel personal brand is it's something that you have whether you build it or not. It's just that you have to be intentional about it, because as long as people know you, as long as you are in society, right, as long as you're not in the cave just alone, right, people have a notion of or a perception of you,
absolutely.
so you can control.
Absolutely. And it's not always, yeah.
Yeah, you can control it or not. So for me, I'm asking is, a lot of persons are just starting out. They just starting out in their field. They're still figuring out what to do. They don't even know what to start, if they should start a business. They're just doing the job they are doing. They're just doing it to survive. And most of them, they feel like they're not exactly an expert at anything. They're not exactly credible at anything. And they're like, oh, well, maybe when I become an expert, then I'll start sharing. What would you say regarding that thought process?
Oof. That could be a whole several day seminar for us to
Wow.
unweave. I think if people aren't quite sure, one thing that I love is the concept of ikigai. It's the
Mm,
Japanese word, right? Where you find where your meet. So what is your skill set? What are you passionate about? What do you really love doing? Where do those intersect? And that should be one of the driving forces for you. There are actually, you can even go online and do ikigai quizzes to help you find what is your meaning, essentially. But yeah, so it's like what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And so it brings all of those things together to find your sweet spot. And that is a really, really great way to make sure that you as a person and what you want to, who you feel that you are is in resonance with who you actually are. And it makes it a lot easier to then think about who you are as a brand. Think about, what do I want to explore in that realm, right? What is something that is a paying job that the world really needs right now that I'm really good at and I love doing? If you start there, you're going to find it, right?
yeah.
And then that's when you start asking people, hey, I want to talk to more people who do this, or do you know anyone who's in need of this? Because this is something I really like. And then you develop what exactly it is that you're going to do. Are you coaching? Are you selling a course? Are you starting a whole business? Are you, whatever it might be that you want to put out in the world?
Yeah, yeah. I like the Ikigai framework you talked about. For those that might be listening, that's probably new to the Ikigai framework, you can check it on Google. You see a Venn diagram in the chat on it, and then you can just walk through the process of the Ikigai. Like, I like that approach. The I do have this question, but I'm afraid that if I ask this question, it's going to take a really long time, right? Because I know that no, when I ask the question, it will all make sense to you, right? The question is, if I was to, let's say I was to be a client, right? And I meet you, and I'm like, I need you to fix my personal branding for me. What would be the process you would walk me through? Can you, like, what would I call it now? Speed run it for me.
Okay, wow. Well, we always start with the brand blueprint. I think that is the most vital thing. And so that is where we walk through the process of either re-examining or for the very first time or changing what it is that is your purpose, your vision, your mission, your values, your positioning statements. From there, we formulate your story and your angle. Then we go into, who are you trying to attract? How are you trying to attract them? Customer personas, messaging based on you and your brand, right? And
Yeah.
then out of that, we create strategic plan, marketing, how we're going to roll out your brand essence, and what could actually like tactics you need if it's social media, if it's interviews, or anything in between. But that definitely, we start with the brand blueprint and then dive into making sure that you're reaching the right people with the right message at the right time, and that you're not just throwing money at a wall, that you're using the right resources. Because I think a lot of people get hung up on, oh, I have to be on all the social media. I have to do this. I have to do that. Well, guess what? It's a nice to have. For some brands, it might be necessary, but for many brands, it's not.
Yeah.
You just need to, right, start simple, and then you can expand from there based on where your people are.
Yeah. And like if I attempt to like break this what you just shared into two phases, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's first you guys do the messaging and the brand messaging, and then the next thing so basically you how did you say it earlier on? You talk about how you see yourself, and then you get the world to see you as you see yourself.
Yes, yeah.
Mm.
So it's the inner work and the outer work.
Yeah, inner work and
essentially,
outer
right?
work. I like that. I like that phrasing. Yeah. You do PRO, right?
I do some limited PR. I do a lot more just consulting, PR, branding, podcasting. I teach university, I podcast, I work with a nonprofit as well in
Yeah.
helping create donor solutions and all of that. So I do a number of different things. I'm always up for a conversation. I can give you a link if people want to have a conversation, no obligation.
Yeah.
I love to help people and have these conversations, and they can jump on, ask me questions, and I'll answer them the best I can. And I'll provide resources. There are a lot of resources I can provide on the internet, or an introduction to somebody, or if it is myself, then that's fantastic too.
Yeah, I like that. I'll get to ask you questions about all those things you mentioned later on. But the reason why I'm asking you about PRO is, when I hear PRO, the first thing I hear is money, 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 money. Are there any budget or free things a content creator could possibly do, as a PRO strategy tool that doesn't require big budgets?
Oh yeah, 100%. There's a tool called Quoted, and there's another tool, and it's QWOTED. There's another one that is called featured.com. Those are tools where you can put yourself in and then put in the keywords, things that you like to talk about, and it'll show, here's some journalists who are writing articles that have to do with this topic. Here's one that needs a quote from an expert in your field. Those are two. They do have paid versions as well, but you can use the free version. Yeah. There are also things like Authority Magazine, which is, huge online publication. They have well over 200 or 300 different articles and interviews that they do, and it's a written interview. If you have a favorite publication, a lot of them, you can look at their website and see where they're taking, which ones are taking articles or interviews, and you can pitch yourself to them. The most important thing is to have that brand, have that pitch really honed in, and know exactly who the market is for that publication or that online, right? And then, of course, podcasting is one of my favorite ways. There are really amazing podcast agencies, but you can also, if you have a little time or you have somebody who can help you as an admin, it's really easy to do it yourself as well and find, the right podcasts and guests to be on a podcast. So I think there's a lot of free tools that are out there that people just don't even realize, or they don't have time. I think that's why that's why we exist, right?
Yeah.
It's because people don't have time to do it themselves. So, yeah.
I think podcast guesting for me, like those ones you mentioned, like the exciting strategy, but the moment I just hear you have to go to this site, I go to this site. For me, like basically what I'm just hearing is walk. Yeah, and of course, most of them work. You get featured on reputable. Most of the journalists, people who write for big magazines like New York Times and other reputable publications. But podcasting, like that seems like something I could hop on and start doing today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for podcasting particularly, I also think it's a great way to maximize what you're doing. If you are on a podcast, you have something to share with your audience that shows you somebody else asked me to be an expert on their podcast. Somebody else sees me as an expert, right? So it's thought leadership. You can take quotes from the conversation and create so much content. You can use audio to create audiograms, or you can create little videos that have the audio from the podcast behind it. If you have a video, also podcast, you can chop that up. You can get a blog post. There's so many different pieces of marketing content material that you get from one episode that it really is, to me, the best investment of time, energy, and money.
Yeah.
You know, if you have $2, you have 200, you can find ways to make it work for you.
Yeah. You know, earlier when I asked you about PR, you mentioned being a professor, podcast host, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist. I'd love to ask you a couple of questions about you. The first one I want to ask is being a professor. You mentioned you've been a professor, but you didn't talk about what you were a professor of, right? So could you tell us?
Yes. So I have been teaching at University of Southern California for the past 3 years. I started out teaching for the Master of Arts in Public Relations and
Wow.
Advertising, teaching public relations
Wow.
and branding.
Wow.
No surprise. But I also teach for the Master of Science in Digital Media Management program. That's where I do most of my teaching right now at the university. And I've created a podcast course that's launching for the master's program in the fall.
Oh, wow. So wow. Wow. What was the word would I use? Flabbergasted. Wow. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is like the first time I'm actually interviewing someone who both teaches and practices. So you both have your business where you are in the industry, and you also teach as a professor. So you both theory and practice, and it's a nice combo of
It's the best. It keeps me at the top of my game as well, because I have to know what, even if it's not for my business, I have to know what is the latest and greatest to share with my students and have those conversations and make sure that they are well equipped for the future of work. I study a lot of AI right now because we all know it's a tool that everybody needs to learn how to use. It's not going to replace everybody. It might replace some, but it's also creating a lot of new jobs. So it's really important. I think it gives me a really unique perspective that we need more of at the university level. We need practitioners who can show actual application of the concepts that we're going through.
Very important. Else people will just end up studying things in 2005 when the world is in 2040. I'm like, you have to catch up. Yeah.
Yes.
The one other thing you mentioned is that you're a podcast host. Can you tell us about your podcast and what's about?
Oh, yes. Your Brand Amplified is my podcast, and it is about people, brand, business. Sometimes people come on and tell their story and their journey, and it's more just uplifting and advice. Sometimes people come on and talk about the latest tool for search engine optimization, or what people need to know about agentic artificial intelligence or copywriting. So it's a mix of storytelling and tactical application and strategy. And that makes it more interesting for me. And I also think for my listeners and the audience.
You mentioned you had 2 podcasts, or did I hear you wrong?
No, you did hear me correctly. My second podcast is at the university. It is called Mediascape: Insights from Digital Changemakers. And it's sponsored by the program, the Digital Media Management Master's program I teach for. And we just bring on different people to talk about, again, sometimes it can be their stories and their journeys, but it's a lot about tactical applications, strategies, what has changed in the world of digital media. So it might be, again, an AI expert. It might be somebody who is blind coming on to talk about accessibility for websites and why it's so important. So it's more of application for my students.
Yeah. Oh, whoa. So it's like you're talking about the same thing, but it's just that the audience is different.
The audience is different. Sometimes not every guest is good for both podcasts. Some guests are better for one versus the other. So I try to do some separation. Sometimes I get really excited though, and have to say, okay, you have to be on this other podcast too, but we'll have it. I'll act like we've never spoken before, and I'll ask different questions. And
the follow-up question I have is, how do you manage all these things? Like that seems like a lot.
Yeah, well, and there's more. Even with this, it's not always easy to manage. What I've honestly just gotten over. I think I got every flu that's been going around lately. I'm finally feeling better, but what it's really made me do is reflect on myself and the fact that I need to look at what I actually have time for, because I also have a lot of other projects that I am involved in or that I want to take on because I'm very curious about the world and I constantly want to educate myself. So I have to look and say, you know what, this is not something that's urgent. I need to take care of the things that I am doing right now, because otherwise, if I'm sick and something worse happens, that's not good for anybody. It's not good for me, right? Not good for those I'm working with. It's not good for my family. So what I've learned is to be okay taking things a little slower when I need to, just giving myself some grace so that I can manage what I need to manage. Some projects I know there's an end in sight. Other things are goals that I want to move into full time. So it's just managing that mix.
Yeah, I like the perspective you gave about that. I think that itself is a story in on its own that someone can get to share with the world. Funny enough, how the stories are there. Earlier when I talked about how most people don't see the stories, but it's just that people are not looking for the stories. It's not like the stories are not there. Okay. Now, the fact that you're a podcast host, you're a podcast guest, you have your own brand, and you're also a professor who teaches PRO, digital media, and advertising. Well, I do have a couple of questions that I can only ask you, except maybe I see someone who has the kind of credentials as you do. The first one is how has podcasting helped your business, your brand Amplify grow?
Podcasting has been really one of the main trajectory points of the past several years. It is a mix of people I've met through podcasting, the wisdom that they share, the connections that we share with each other. I've had several people who have been on my podcast or I've been on their podcast. We meet up every few months, see how we can help each other. Maybe we have somebody who should do business with that person or vice versa. It's a very, very great community. It also has given me access to people I would never have gotten the chance to meet, who I can now go to and ask those questions about what's going on in the world of AI. How did they invent this patent, or whatever the topic may be? It's definitely helped with what I'm doing at the university. I don't think I would be doing as much if I didn't have a successful podcast. It's gotten me on stages. It's helped me create courses. It's helped me become a member of things like the International Association of Digital Arts and Sciences, where now I'm a Webby's judge. So the opportunities for growth, not just professionally, but personally and mentally, they've just been tremendous.
Wow, I feel like probably in the future we would have to have an episode about growing your podcast and the benefits of having a podcast.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do so.
Just on a final note, if someone wants to start a podcast to build their brand, what's
the first step is saying yes to yourself, is saying, okay, I can do this. There are a lot of resources out there. Don't pay, I do coach people, but I'm the first person to say, don't go out and spend a ton of money. Make sure it's something that you want to do. Make sure that you're working with the right person. If you choose to work with somebody. I've been an independent podcaster this whole time. I do monetize my podcast, but I still invest a lot of time, money, and energy into it. I'm constantly trying to improve it, right? So you have to decide what you want out of it, out of your brand or out of a podcast. Start there. And again, don't just throw a lot of money into it before you speak to somebody or listen to some podcasts or read some articles that can really show you a little bit more about the flavor and what you really need to do for your version of success.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there anything you'd love to share with my audience that you feel I did not ask you?
I believe, Wisdom, that you are curious intellectually and that you ask really good questions. I can't honestly think of something that you haven't asked me or something else I need to share. But I love, again, speaking to people. I'm happy to anybody who's listening who wants to reach out via LinkedIn or my website, which is yourbrandampli.com. Happy to do so. I love having conversations. It's one of the things that brings me the most joy in helping people realize that spark that they have inside them. So thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate
that compliment coming from you. It takes me back to the old days when I was still in school and my teacher and my prof would talk to me. And you happen to be a prof, so it's So I know you did share some of your call to actions and place where people can connect with you. But at the end of every episode, I always ask the same question: where can listeners learn more and connect with you? So I guess you have to share the call to action again.
Yeah, it's okay. The easiest way to get in touch with me is via LinkedIn or via my website, yourbrandamplified.com. If you sign up, there's a couple places you can sign up for a strategy session, or you can join my mailing list. I'm not very good at sending a lot of emails out. I try not to overwhelm people because I get annoyed when I get too many emails. So if you really, really want to get in touch with me, rather than just get on my email address, definitely find some time on my Calendly. There is a link on my website. We can schedule a half hour, talk through whatever you want to talk through, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn and listen to the podcast. Let me know what you think.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. You have a great voice and line of questioning, and it's been a real pleasure.
That's it for today's episode of Wisdom Journey. If you found this insightful, helpful, and you learned a lot from this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your respective podcast listening platform. It really helps other persons discover the show. Yeah, keep creating, keep learning, and most importantly, keep sharing your journey. You never know who needs your wisdom today. See what I did there? Until next time, stay inspired and keep going.